about having their own lives and their freedom than traditional marriage than it used to be. So it's just a big change of society today.
And Charlie Downs, does that matter? Are there negatives to being focused on career and choosing to shack up as opposed to get married in church?
Very much so. I mean, I like to think that I am slightly swimming against the tide because, there we go, I got married at the beginning of last month, and I'm 24.
Aww.
And the last time that the average age of marriage in this country was 24 was 60 years ago. The average age of marriage now is about 33 years old, which is a historic high. And I think this is largely because of the reasons that Pastor Mark outlined just now, which is that we don't actually understand as young people what marriage is.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Thursday the 27th of November, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the budget has gone down badly for some. Except amongst Labour backbenchers who are quite pleased with it.
Chancellor has raised taxes by £26 billion, taking the tax burden to another record high. Workers, savers and businesses are taking the hit. The Chancellor told GB News her budget focuses on her priorities.
Cutting the cost of living, cutting NHS waiting lists and cutting debt and borrowing. And I achieved those things in my budget, my second budget as Chancellor of the Exchequer yesterday.
Yeah. Madam Deputy Speaker, I've identified a way to save taxpayers huge amounts of money by sacking just one person, the woman sitting opposite.
Well, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, did not pull her punches. She went on the attack, calling Rachel Reeves the worst ever Chancellor and branding her plans a smorgasbord of misery.
We're here at Morley Market near Leeds. It's been here since 1880, and we'll be speaking to market traders about what they make of the budget.
The Conservatives have described the budget as the nightmare before Christmas. We're here in South Shields speaking to working families to see if they'll actually see the benefit.
More than 53,000 absconding illegal migrants are missing as we await the government's latest migration data any moment now.
And we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them.
Well, overnight, President Trump has issued a statement from the White House as 2 National Guardsmen are shot in Washington, D.C. The suspected gunman is an Afghan migrant.
I think it was a shocker. Even though we knew most of it, but 26 billion, or was it 27 billion pounds tax it? She's frozen the tax thresholds. That's going to take, by the end of this Parliament, 800,000 pensioners into taxation for the first time. 800,000 people are going to be paying tax for the first time as a result of the budget in the next year. And the tax thresholds have been frozen for 2 years, Miriam. 3 years, till 2031. They won't even be in government then.
Absolutely, and 1 in 4 people will be paying the higher rate of tax. When it was first introduced, that higher rate of tax, it was just 1 in 20. It was only the top 5% of earners. Now it's going to be for lots of very ordinary jobs, teachers, nurses. 40% is quite a high tax if you add national insurance on top of that, then a student loan payment and compulsory pension payments. You're looking at losing more than half of your salary to the government in an ordinary job.
She's always banging on the chance about the G7. We'll have the highest inflation in the G7, the fastest rising tax burden and the highest borrowing. What a deplorable record.
It was a record-breaking budget in so many ways. And one record that was broken was the amount of leaks, not just in the run-up, but of course just before the budget. I think about 12:15 during Prime Minister's Question Time, the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, accidentally published the entire thing. It's never happened before.
Which is a metaphor for everything about the chancellorship, a shambles, an unmitigated, unprecedented, chaotic shambles. And I'm afraid you make your luck.
Absolutely. Well, some commentators were saying that the OBR had done it on purpose to make sure that the bond yields didn't fall during the budget speech, but I don't think it had any difference in the end.
Well, I'm surprised the head hasn't rolled, actually.
I think it might do. Whoever pressed upload has not got long for the job, have they?
As ever, we will know what you think, and you do that by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you very much. The top stories this morning. Rachel Reeves will face further questions after delivering a budget that raised tax by £26 billion, but was overshadowed by an unprecedented leak. After delivering her tax-raising budget, she acknowledges she's asking ordinary people to pay a little bit more. Donald Trump has called for every Afghan national who entered the US under the Biden administration to be investigated following the shooting of 2 National Guard troops near the White House. Peers have been given an extra 10 days to scrutinise the assisted dying bill after a record number of amendments prompted concerns it would run out of time to be passed into law. And 3 people have been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter over a deadly fire which engulfed a high-rise residential complex in Hong Kong. Authorities say at least 55 people, including a firefighter, have been killed and about 279 are still missing from the blaze. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, let's call her what it is, Rachel Robber Reeves. She finally delivered that budget after months of painful, never-ending leaks, most of it orchestrated by her and the Treasury. She spoke to GB News a little bit earlier.
I did have to increase taxes yesterday, but I've kept them to an absolute minimum on ordinary working people, freezing those thresholds for an additional 3 years from 2028. So more money in people's pockets, whether those are working families or indeed pensioners.
What was the point of that location? Some vastly overpaid Treasury official would have thought that's a great place to do it.
Well, maybe she was on a visit.
Warehouse.
She was on a visit and she's fitted in GB News, which is good for our breakfast audience to have the chance to. But what did you make of it overall?
Hopeless.
The budget?
Hopeless. And I thought that the leak by the Office of Budget Responsibility summed up her chancellorship. A chaotic, shambolic, not her fault, of course, but just tells you everything. I've never known a build-up to a budget like that in all the years I've been a journalist, ever. Leak after leak after leak after leak, putting this idea forward, withdrawing, in, out, in, out.
And everything that was leaked was actually announced. It wasn't the case that there were a number of things
And if you're listening on the radio, this is the Chancellor poring over her phone. Somebody's handed her a phone. Torsten Bell, who's one of the ministers who drew up the budget, where she's discovering that the Office of Budget Responsibility have inadvertently leaked the budget. And, of course, the conspiracy theory is it stopped bond yields flailing around during the speech.
But, I mean, it must be extraordinary for her. She's sitting down, she's probably quite nervous, waiting to deliver her speech as soon as the Prime Minister's questions have finished. And suddenly there's this buzz in the chamber. Nobody's really focusing at all on PMQs at that point because people are starting to realise exactly that the budget's being leaked. They're starting to read it and look at the charts. And she's completely powerless in that moment. There's nothing she can do. It's not her fault, like you said.
It's not her fault,
supposed to apologise for it?
It just sums up the chaos in the heart of this government. It's just a joke. It's become a complete joke.
Well, I think the OBR is a bit of a joke anyway, but we'll get on to that.
When she was in opposition, Miriam, she worshipped the ground the OBR walked on. Let's talk to the business journalist Ian King, who's covered more budgets than I have. Ian, the OBR leak was symbolic, in a way, of everything.
Yeah. I mean, you will remember, in the old days, ahead of a budget, you had purdah.
Yeah.
Chancellors made no public pronouncements whatsoever. But as you say, practically, it was 83 days as well between the date of the budget being announced and it actually happening, which is, I think, pretty much without precedent. And every one of those 83 days seemed to have some sort of idea being floated out there, or a leak, or some kind of speech, not capped all by that extraordinary press conference the week before last, which Kemi Badenoch very amusingly cited in her budget response. Just incredible. And yeah, so the OBR leak at the end of all that was really the sort of cherry on the icing, I felt. It kind of encapsulated the whole chaos behind it.
And what of the budget itself, Ian? Massive increase in taxes. We'd already were taxed more than ever before. The Tories were taxed us more than ever before. She whacked us last year with 40 billion, 26 billion this year. More borrowing, more spending on welfare.
Yeah, I mean, this is the big story of the budgets. The share of tax as a share of GDP is now going to be higher than it has at 38.3% by the end of this Parliament. I mean, that is the highest for at least 50 years. We're going back an awful long way. Over the last two budgets from Rachel Reeves, this year and last year, she's extracted more money in taxes than any budget, any Chancellor, going back all the way to 1970 when Ian MacLeod had a short-lived spell as Chancellor. Poor fellow died weeks into the role. So this is it's interesting. Everyone always says that Keir Starmer lacks a narrative. Danny Finkelstein wrote a great piece in the Times a few days ago about this, saying Starmer lacks a narrative. But I wonder whether the narrative is that either by accident or by design, they're trying to turn the UK into a sort of Scandinavian economy where you have very, very high levels of tax relative to GDP. And over time, of course, they've got to deliver high-quality services.
Yes, Sweden has good services. We don't. Nothing works.
Also, although overall they're taxed more than us, it's much more evenly spread, whereas our tax burden now is absolutely skewed towards the top end, the people who create the wealth and are much more mobile.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Although I would say the decisions made yesterday, the people who get hit most hard are actually people on around 50,000 a year. Once upon a time, you'd have said they were high earners, but don't forget, by the end of this Parliament, 1 in 4 people is going to be paying the the higher rate of income tax, 40p in the pound. That's significant. In terms of, there's also another interesting point which is made by the Resolution Foundation, which of course, you mentioned Torsten Bell, David Tomlinson, another Resolution Foundation alumnus, was also very, very highly involved in the creation of this budget. Well, the Resolution Foundation pointed out last night, very interestingly, I thought, obviously, Rachel Reeves ruled out an increase to the basic rate of income tax. The Resolution Foundation pointed out that the lowest paid workers in the economy would actually have been slightly better off had she raised the basic rate of income tax and not gone for freezing thresholds.
Because so many lower paid people are now paying tax for the first time.
Yes, that's right.
Well, Ian King, thank you so much. We will be hearing more from you later on in the programme, but let's cross now to South Shields and speak to our GB News reporter, Bethany Elsey. Bethany, how has the budget gone down?
Very good morning to you. Yes, we're here in South Shields. Well, not great, to be honest. South Shields is very acutely hit by the cost of living crisis, and a lot of people I've been speaking to this morning saying this budget doesn't go far enough. There are some sweet nuggets in there, with the free school meals to be expanded to all people on universal credit from September next year, which is going to affect around 500,000 children, as well as the scrapping of the 2-child benefit cap for families up and down this region. Household income in South Shields is well below the national average, in some parts by £10,000. 1 in 5 people in South Shields are on universal credit, but nearly 35% of those people are currently in employment as well, which just speaks to the in-work poverty, with just people struggling to make ends meet. The Conservatives have called this budget a budget for Benefit Street, but people here just don't agree with that. One person I've been speaking to this morning is a working mother of 3, Sophie. Sophie, what do you say about what the Conservatives have had to say about this?
I think the Conservatives do like to spin this narrative of Benefit Britain, but it's just not the reality for most families. The 2-child cap especially was inhumane from the start. It punishes children for the circumstances that we were born into and the situation that the parents are in. People forget that families don't have extra children just for fun. Circumstances change, there's redundancies, there can be bereavements, relationships can break down, people become sick, domestic violence can cause women to flee. Life happens, and that's why welfare system exists, to catch the families when things go wrong. Scrapping the cap was the right thing to do. Every child deserves to be fed, clothed and cared for, and they shouldn't just be ignored because this just happened to be the third child. It's not about rewarding people for having more children. It's about making sure kids don't grow up in poverty because of the situation and the circumstances that the parents are in and what they were born into.
And we talk about child poverty. In South Shields, 35% of children are living in poverty. So the Chancellor says she wants to tackle that head on with things like the free school meals and the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap. Your eldest child has now gone up a school year and so doesn't receive any free school meals at the moment. But from September next year, as a person who claims universal credit, you'll benefit from that. Is that a positive thing?
Yeah, it's definitely a positive thing. You know, any money back in your pocket, especially with the cost of living at the minute, it's going to benefit us. Right now, you know, I have very little disposable income. So if something goes wrong, if my car breaks down, I'm going to struggle to do basically anything. So it is a welcome change. And I mean, I've got 2 children to follow, so if I had to pay for all 3 to have the school meals, you know, it is a massive chunk of my income. So it will make a bit of a change, and it's a nice change to see, but I still think it doesn't go far enough.
Well, you've heard it here. Sophie summed it up brilliantly. Some positive things, but it just doesn't go far enough.
Thank you, Bethany. Well, let's go down about 150 miles now to Leeds, where our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley is also getting responses to the budget.
Good morning. Yes, we're here at Morley Market. It's been here since 1880. Market traders here for the last 145 years. We're at Berry and Bright Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Store here, and we're delighted to be joined by the owner, Mev Ahmed. Mev, you've been trading just for 3 months here. What have you made to the budget?
It's very soon for me to speak up about it because I've literally only been here 3 months, almost 3 months. But yeah, I was a bit disappointed that there is actually little or no support for anyone that is in my position, purely because I've come out from an employed background into self-employed, and I've literally self-financed this. I wanted to be out there on the high street because there was a greengrocer there, but I just couldn't afford the rates. So there is no support for self-employed people.
And the minimum wage has gone up, but you said at the moment you're not paying yourself minimum wage.
Correct, yeah. So before I even begin to think about employing somebody, when, you know, I do start sort of like hitting off and getting busier, I've got to focus on paying myself a wage this year, which is looking unlikely being here 3 months. I mean, you can see the market is very, very quiet, and it's because people are still watching their pennies.
What did you want to see to help small businesses like yourself?
Some kind of funding or support or a grant. I might have savings, but it's almost as though like, go spend your savings and then we'll support you, is what I've kind of got. But yeah, there's a lot. There wasn't enough support when I was employed, and there isn't enough support when I'm self-employed. I just feel like working people were just made to work to support people in the welfare, probably. Like the child benefit has gone up. I'm paying for children that I don't have, and I find that very, very unfair. And it's not just me. There's a lot of people out there that don't have children, you know, not by choice, but we're having to contribute to that system, and that system is very, very dependent on taxpayers' money, and it's always been like that. I've paid into the system for 22 years, and I'm getting zero support.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mev. Really hope it picks up for you because you've got a fantastic store here. Thank you so much for having us. So we're here in Morley Market throughout the day. We'll be speaking to more traders to say what they make of the budget.
Anna, thank you so much for that, and we'll be back with you later. Now, friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll by scanning the QR code that should be on the screen right now. We're asking, was the Chancellor right to cut the two-child benefit scrap, or even to scrap it? The two-child benefit cap, we've got it right now. And the results so far are 2% of you say yes and 98% no.
The Chancellor's obviously got her supporters bringing up to, they must be the 2%. By the way, just to remind you, a year ago, the Chancellor said the country could not afford to cut the two-child benefit cap, which will cost around £3 billion. The economic indicators are considerably worse than they were a year ago. She cut it because she needed to keep Labour MPs on side. It was to save her political skin. That's why she did it.
Well, coming up next, the latest migration statistics have been released, and there are some huge numbers in there. We'll be breaking them down with our Home and Security editor, Mark White.
First, though, we've got that elusive holiday sun. Here it is.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
There's some further heavy, thundery rain affecting parts of Eastern Europe as we go through the next few days, particularly Greece and Albania. But starting off further west, yes, some rain pushing into the far northwest of Spain, but actually ahead of that, tomorrow looks largely fine and dry. A few bits of rain across the southern parts of Italy, but as I mentioned, it's further east, Greece, Turkey, Albania, where we're going to see heavy rain building up. Some places could see 250 millimetres through this week, enough to cause some disruption.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Presenter and businessman Jeff Banks joins us this afternoon. Jeff, so good to see you. Your piece on X was quite sensational. Can you tell people what you said? Because some people, X went down a little while ago. Some people may not have seen it. Can you give us a summary of what you said?
Yes, last August, I got a letter saying that I hadn't got a BBC licence. And I wrote back and I said, I've not watched BBC television for a couple of years now. I don't listen to BBC radio, and therefore I don't want a licence, and I'm not prepared to pay for one. I then got quite a reasonable letter back acknowledging that, to say that it had been noted that my premises no longer required a BBC licence. Then about a month after that, I started getting the first of a threatening letter that I didn't have a licence, and that if I continued without one, I possibly could actually face a fine of £1,000. Then I got another one, and then another one. And then finally last week, I got the fifth, which actually not only was threatening the fine of £1,000, but actually saying I was now on a list that meant an inspector would be likely to actually call on me. And at that point, I felt that that was harassment. So I then wrote back to the BBC and said that you're now, in my opinion, harassing me. Either you stop doing that and desist, or I'll have no alternative to actually put it in the hands of my lawyers, and they can actually fight the battle.
GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 8 minutes to 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, some breaking news coming to Newsroom about immigration, and GB News Home and Security editor Mark White is there to tell us more.
Well, it's these net migration figures that everyone's always anxious to hear about. We can show you now, actually, that they've gone down to 204,000, the long-term international net migration for the year ending June 2025. Now, that's two-thirds lower than a year earlier when it was at 649,000 in the year ending June 2024. We knew it was going to be heading down to a pretty low figure because we get these figures every 6 months, and previously we were talking about 411,000 was the previous net migration figure. That was revised down actually because of the way in which the Office for National Statistics changes its methodology. So it was down to 345,000, but now 6 months later you're seeing this 204,000. Now I'm joined by GBNews Home and Security Senior Producer Tom Fredericks, who's crunching the numbers with me. Just to add to the complication of these stats that come out, Tom, we also get Home Office figures that are a bit more up to date, aren't they, to September this year. What about work visas, for instance?
So these kind of come out in parallel with the ONS figures, but they're more detailed. So what we end up with is a look at the number of people who have actually been granted visas to work in this country over a period of time. And what that shows is that there are fewer people being granted visas to work here, but it is higher than in the past in 2019. So
it's 175,000 visas granted to main applicants in the year ending September this year, 27% fewer than the previous year.
Exactly, and one of the statistics that is quite interesting is that the number of visas granted in the sort of health and care related sectors has gone right down, and it's gone down 89% from a peak in 2 years ago. So and
that is important because we've heard obviously about the healthcare visa system having been abused, that many people arrived on that scheme but didn't actually enter the healthcare NHS sector at all, but came into other work categories. Student visas is always a big issue of concern. What's that looking like?
It's been a big issue, and I think what this shows is that the actual number of visas handed out to students hasn't particularly fluctuated, but the big story over a period of time was the dependents, people's families, people coming over with families, student families, and that has gone right down.
So it's 440,000 student visas issued in the year to September.
Yeah, and then the main thing people were worried about is bringing your extended family over as a student, and that became an issue. That's now gone down in the year ending September 2025, 57%. So it's 50% fewer at 20,000. So that's come right down. That's been the one they really wanted to tackle over a period of time.
And in terms of another point of interest, I think, that we found here relates to the refugee family reunion system. The visas granted on that have risen. Tell us about that, Tom.
Yeah, so basically the number of visas, the family-related visas that have been granted, that's gone down slightly. But refugee family reunion visas, which you know have been in the news, so refugees who come into this country and then whose families come over subsequently, that's gone up by 11% to almost 21,000. And that has been an issue because the Home Secretary has clearly said they want to monitor that and bring those numbers down. And in some ways, you automatically, when you came in as a refugee, you were allowed to bring family. Subsequently, that will change.
Right, we've got to hand back, but another piece of breaking news, and that relates to asylum accommodation in hotels. That's increased by 13%, up to 36,273. So far from actually getting rid of the asylum seeker hotels, they are increasing.
Mark, Tom, thank you very much for that report. A mixed picture there.
Well, and the stuff about asylum hotels will infuriate people, won't it?
Well, we'll cover that all later. But next, we've got the latest from Washington, D.C. after those shootings overnight. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB.
Thank you, Britain, for our more than 2 million YouTube subscribers and more than 2 billion views. That is Britain watching, sharing and making its voice heard louder than ever before.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A9, a broken vehicle blocks the southbound route at Keir roundabout. On the M4 eastbound between junctions 26 Malpas and 23A Mega, drivers face congestion. In Derbyshire, on the A38 southbound between the A610 and the A61, a collision led to lane closures. In Worcestershire, congestion plagues the M5 northbound between junctions 7 and 5. And on the trains, Chiltern Railways face major disruption between West Ruislip and London Marylebone, and cross-country services are disrupted between Bournemouth and Brockenhurst. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 27th of November. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce. I'm Miriam Cates.
Well, the budget, it's gone down pretty badly.
These are my choices, the right choices for a fairer, a stronger and more secure Britain.
Well, the Chancellor raises taxes by £26 billion, taking the burden to a record high, with workers, savers and businesses taking the hit. Well, Rachel Reeves told GB News that the budget focuses on her priorities.
Cutting the cost of living, cutting NHS waiting lists and cutting debt and borrowing. And I achieved those things in my budget, my second budget as Chancellor of the Exchequer yesterday.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I've identified a way to save taxpayers huge amounts of money by sacking just one person, the woman sitting opposite.
Well, Tory leader Kevin Baynett went on the attack. It was a savage attack too, calling Rachel Reeves the worst ever Chancellor. She also had this to say.
That smorgasbord of misery we just heard from her can be summed up in one sentence. Labour are hiking taxes to pay for welfare. This is a budget for Benefit Street, Madam Deputy Speaker, paid for by working people.
Well, here on Benefit Street, I'll be finding out what the residents think about this budget and whether it will help them.
And in breaking news this morning, migrant hotel use is up as more than 53,000 absconding illegal migrants are apparently on the run.
Well, migration, of course, a huge issue for this government. On the more positive side of things, net migration is down pretty dramatically to 204,000.
And we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them.
Overnight, President Trump issuing a statement from the White House after 2 National Guardsmen were shot in Washington, D.C. The suspected gunman, an Afghan migrant.
Well, Well, net migration of 204,000 last year is a substantial fall from the peak in 2022. It's still high historically, but the lowest it's been for quite some time.
The irony is this is down a lot to reforms instituted by the last Tory government, particularly on students and families that can bring in.
And the care worker visa.
Care worker visa. But 53,000 migrants have done a bunk. Where are they? And what is really interesting, this government said they were going to get migrants out of hotels, which cost billions a year, more than ever in migrant hotels.
Yes, a 13% increase before the summer. Which of course reflects that over the summer there's good weather and more people come across these boats. But if there's no alternative and no disincentives to coming here, then why won't they still keep coming?
As ever, we want to know what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Andrew, Miriam, thank you very much. The top stories. Rachel Reeves will face further questions after delivering a budget that raised tax by £26 billion but was overshadowed by an unprecedented leak. Rachel Reeves acknowledges she's asking ordinary people to pay a little bit more. The Chancellor's decisions put Britain on course for a record tax burden as she hiked levies after weaker economic forecasts left holes in her previous spending plans. Many will pay higher rates of tax as their pay increases as the Chancellor freezes income tax thresholds until 2031. The government says the increases are also needed to pay for increased welfare spending, with Rachel Reeves announcing the abolition of the two-child benefit cap, expected to lift 450,000 children out of poverty. She defended her tax increases, saying they're necessary.
I did have to increase taxes yesterday, but I've kept them to an absolute minimum on ordinary working people, freezing those thresholds for an additional 3 years from 2028. So more money in people's pockets, whether those are working families or...
But Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride said Labour's measures would lead to 25,000 more people going on to benefits as a direct consequence of making them more attractive.
What has happened in this budget is just a second instalment of the disaster that we had in the first budget in the autumn of last year. Huge tax increases on hard-working people, whilst at the same time giving in to the pressures from their own backbenchers in the Labour Party and putting up benefits. That is not the way to get growth going. And in fact, in the OBR's numbers, you can see growth being damaged throughout the period compared to the forecast in the spring, unemployment going up every single year compared to the last forecast, and real living standards actually declining compared to last spring as a consequence of the choices that the government's taken.
Elsewhere, net migration to the UK fell to 204,000 in the year to June, according to new figures. That's a drop from 649,000 in the year to June 2024, a fall of around two-thirds. The Office for National Statistics says the fall is driven by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work and study and a gradual increase, they say, in levels of emigration. The number of asylum seekers, meanwhile, being housed temporarily in UK hotels at the end of September was 36,273, which is up 13% on the figure in June, according to Home Office data. Donald Trump has called for every Afghan national who entered the UK under the Joe Biden administration to be investigated following the shooting of 2 National Guard troops near the White House. The president said the monstrous ambush-style attack was carried out by an Afghan national who arrived in September of 2021 during America's chaotic withdrawal from Kabul. America's Citizenship and Immigration Office said it had stopped processing all immigration requests relating to Afghan nationals indefinitely.
This heinous assault was an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. It was a crime against our entire nation. It was a crime against humanity. As President of the United States, I am determined to ensure that the animal who perpetrated this atrocity pays the steepest possible price.
Elsewhere, 3 people have been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter over a deadly fire which engulfed a high-rise residential complex in Hong Kong. Authorities say at least 55 people, including 1 firefighter, have been killed and around 279 are still missing from the blaze in a suburban district with around 300,000 residents in the city's north near the border with mainland China. A further 45 are in hospital in a critical condition, with around 900 people also in shelters. It's not known how the fire started started, but police said it may have been spread through bamboo scaffolding and construction mesh sheets on one side of the buildings and spread from there, likely aided by windy conditions. And peers have been given an extra 10 days to scrutinise the assisted dying bill after a record number of amendments prompted concerns it would run out of time to be passed into law. The bill was backed by MPs in an historic vote in June and is now in its final stages in the House of Lords, where peers must agree the wording of the legislation for the bill to become law. There are fears opponents are trying to talk out the bill by lodging a record number of requests for changes and making very slow progress in discussing them. Approval for the end-of-life bill would need to be approved by both the Commons and the Lords before spring, when the current session of Parliament ends. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Well, welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, finally, after all, well, it's 83 days, as we know from Ian King earlier, the business journalist, 83 days from when we knew the date of the budget, of endless speculation, endless theorising and endless leaks from the Chancellor herself and the Treasury. She finally delivered that budget.
Well, she did speak to GB News earlier. Here's what Rachel Reeves had to say.
I did have to increase taxes yesterday, but I've kept them to an absolute minimum on ordinary working people, freezing those thresholds for an additional 3 years from 2028. So more money in people's pockets, whether those are working families or indeed pensioners.
How is there more money in people's pockets if you're getting taken into a higher tax bracket? How is that more money in your pocket?
That's a very
people
good
at the lower end of the income scale are going into tax sometime for the first time as well.
Well, there is more money in your pocket if you live off benefits, because benefits are going to be uprated by inflation, which is more than many people will receive in their pay packets. And also, most people on benefits don't pay tax, so they won't.
800,000 of the lowest paid have been taken into tax for the first time as a result of her budget, and 920,000 more people are being taken into the 40p tax rate. The Chancellor is misleading at best when she says more money in people's pockets.
And the pensions change is quite interesting. So instead of being able to make contributions into your employer pension scheme tax-free or national insurance-free, that's going to change, which will disincentivise people from putting money away from their retirement.
What do they call it? The pension surrender? So you could...
Salary sacrifice,
you give up some of your salary, which is paid into your pension, which means the employer has to pay less national insurance and the employee pays less tax. She's capped it, and that's going to cost another £2.5 billion.
And it will cost more in the long term because people will be saving less for their retirement.
But she didn't care about the long term because they don't. She's thinking about votes and the votes of backbench MPs, which is why, did you notice in the budget speech, she mentioned so many backbenchers in the speech because she's desperate to have their support. It was extraordinary performance. It was all about saving her job.
It is convention to, if you've been lobbied to make some change, to then refer to that honourable member, because then they can clip it for their constituency.
Oh, chat with it.
I've been there. But she also had a message for business, because of course they've been worried about the potential changes. This is what she said.
They're sending a simple message to the world. If you build here, Britain will back you.
Well, we're joined now by two brothers, John and Sonny Lee, and they're the joint owner of 6 fish and chip shops in Southampton. Good morning to you both. Thank you so much for joining us. I expect, like many people, you've been spending the last 6 weeks wondering what on earth is going to be in the budget. What did you make of the announcements?
Well, not a lot, really. Seems like, once again, as small businesses, we get overlooked. That's been this budget and the last budget. Just seems like we're forgotten about, and sort of no help for small businesses at all. You know, we feel like we're the thriving part of many communities, villages, towns, and no help. You walk down your local town at the moment and half the shops are empty. You know, what incentive is there to open and run a small business at the moment?
Yeah, and 60% of the new businesses go bust in the first 3 years, and that was before yesterday's budget. So if it wasn't tough enough already, they've made it even harder. No help for small businesses.
And guys, she's increased the minimum wage for the youngest people, 18 to 21, by 8.5%. That's going to be a real deterrent for you to employ more people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, majority, we have over 60 members of staff. Majority of them fall into that bracket, the 18 to 20-year-olds. So a massive increase on our wage bill, 8.5%.
That's a lot of money, isn't it? You've got to sell a lot more fish and chips to do that, haven't you?
Our dad started this business back in 1988. So, you know, the amount of people, young people we've given jobs to over the years, many people, their first job in life. And what's the incentive anymore, you know?
Yeah.
It's good for the employee because obviously their wages are going up, but then we might think, you know, instead of 3 members of staff tonight, we only have 2. So then, you know, we might have to cut the staff bill down like that, you know. So then in the long term, they're going to lose out where we can't take on as many members of staff.
And depending on how many hours they work, they may now be brought into tax as a result of the wage increase. So they won't be that much better off at all.
So they think it's good, but obviously, then they might be pushed into the next tax threshold.
Yeah.
Now, you've had to cope with rising food prices, of course, which has been even higher than the base level of inflation. What impact has that had on your business?
Well, cod is at an all-time high at the moment. Just one of the many things, obviously, cooking oil, potatoes, and everything. 20% VAT straight away to the government. And then the very, very little profit that were left at the end of selling that fish and chips, they then take 25% corporation tax on our profits. Yeah. So I'd love for one of them to come and do a day's work with us and see how hard we work for very, very little at the end of the day or the week. You know,
You've got something there, guys. You've got a certificate. What did you win this year?
This was the shop we're in today, Best Fry West End. 2025 winner, voted by the Daily Echo, our local newspaper, the readers of the Daily Echo. So very proud of that.
Yeah.
Just keep trying, we keep going, we do as much as we can. We just keep saying we'll ride the storm, we'll get through these tough times. But at the moment, it just seems like this storm's never ending. Yeah. And there's no light at the end of the tunnel at the moment.
Storm just keeps getting worse. It's turning into a hurricane.
Do you think Rachel Reeves has ever bought fish and chips?
I'd love to ask her, does she know, how much fish and chips is at the moment? And is she in the real world? And what would a portion of cod and chips cost, guys? Well, that's the thing. We try and offer value options, good value for money for everyone. Lunchtimes we offer $6.95 fish and chips. Very good. So try and
diversify, bring in different species. We've got to charge the money we charge for the cod with how expensive it is, so we like to offer a cheaper alternative. We've bought in pollock now. We're doing that at $5.95 lunchtimes with pollock and chips, $5.95. And just looking at different things, ways to diversify and keep the business moving forward. Dad started it in 1988, and he said to us, this is the toughest times he's ever seen.
Does he really? Wow, wow.
Nearly 40
well, look, we're rooting for you guys.
Yeah.
We really are. That's John and Sunny Lee, joint owners of 6 fish and chip shops in Southampton. They're up against it, but well done for winning that award from the Echo readers too. That's the public voting for you, which is great news.
Absolutely. Well,
nice guys. £6 for fish and chips, pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like they're doing everything they can to keep going and employing all those people as well, young people, giving them jobs.
8.5% their wage bill going up for most of their employees.
And that with inflation and energy prices over the last few years.
It'll drag those kids into tax as well.
Yeah. Well, Kemi Badenoch described the budget statement as a budget for Benefit Street, and that's exactly where our national reporter Will Godley has gone to in Birmingham.
Yes, good morning. Welcome to Benefit Street, Andrew, Miriam. It's a little bit of a ghost town, actually. Not many people around. The bins are piling up. Of course, the bin strike still in force here in Birmingham. And Benefit Street here got its name due to that controversial documentary about 10 years ago on Channel 4, of course, where they claimed 90% of the people who lived on this street were on benefits. And now in the constituency here, it's one of the highest places of people still on benefits here in Britain. Nearly 2 in 5 people on benefits in this area of Birmingham. And of course, Kemi Badenoch made these comments due to the fact that this budget was going to increase welfare spending quite considerably, up from current this year levels of £333 billion to, in 5 years' time, £406 billion. Some people describing that as an eye-watering figure. People here, though, haven't been very forthcoming at wanting to share their opinions. I have managed to speak to a couple of people who live on the street, not wanting to talk on camera. One lady who is on universal credit and also child benefits, when I described the changes and the fact that she would actually receive more benefits next year, told me she thought that would be a bad idea because it would be encouraging people to have more children who couldn't afford it, and actually thought that wasn't the best decision. That's coming from someone who is on benefits, someone else who lives on this street and has lived on this street since before Channel 4 filmed this documentary more than 10 years ago, was watching our coverage of the budget yesterday, and he slammed the decision to increase benefits here. He told me it was making them more attractive, discouraging people from being in work, and actually thought it would have the opposite impact of perhaps what Rachel Reeves might have wanted. But what's clear to me here on Benefit Street is that not many people even know that a budget took place, despite Kemi Badenoch describing it as the budget for Benefit Street.
Fascinating, Will. Isn't that really interesting? Everybody thinks that we can't go on like this with benefits going up and up and up, even people on benefits, and yet even a government with a majority of 150 can't do anything about it.
Because the backbenchers have tied her hands, and she's in trouble with her backbenchers. It's a weak Chancellor and a very weak Prime Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Will. We'll be back to you later on. And friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll by scanning the QR code, which should be on the screen right now. And we're asking, was the Chancellor right to scrap the two-child benefit cap? Well, the results so far remind me of a North Korean election, with 2% of you saying yes and 98% saying no.
And we haven't voted either
No, we
of
should
us.
get on with it. How many times are you allowed to vote?
Now, if you want to find out how you'll be impacted by the budget, also you can scan the app's QR code on screen now, or go to gbnews.com to use our free budget calculator.
Now, there's only a few weeks left until Christmas. Time is running out for you to enjoy it all on us. £40,000 in tax-free cash, £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket, and a fantastically festive GB News goodie bag. Here are all the details you need.
There's just 28 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you can enjoy it on us. That's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 fantastic. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family, the tree and decorations. £1,000 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, there are more than 53,000 missing illegal migrants in Britain. Does the Home Secretary have any chance of finding them?
Of course not.
Well, we'll be going through that and more with our esteemed broadcasters, Jonathan Liss and Carol Malone.
Esteemed? Who wrote that?
They're getting ready for some peaceful disagreement, as usual, I think. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News. We'll be back soon.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I think a lot of you at home are going to be quite annoyed with this. Now, Tesco, the big supermarket chain, appears to have got rid of the famous Christmas trees, instead renaming them evergreen
trees.
Evergreen
There's
trees.
the evergreen tree.
Here we are. So if you're listening on the radio, these are pictures of their boxes of artificial Christmas trees without the word Christmas on them at all, instead calling them evergreen trees. There are still a number of Christmas trees available called Christmas trees. But I think it has clearly annoyed quite a lot of people. Why do you call them evergreen trees? Can't you just call them Christmas?
Just call them Christmas trees. I call them Christmas trees even outside of the time of Christmas. If they look like a Christmas tree, I call them a Christmas tree, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And the Conservative leader of the London Assembly, Susan Hall, she's told The Telegraph, it's Christmas. It's a Christmas tree. People don't tend to put up green plastic fir trees for any other reason. It's all stupid nonsense about offending other people and other religions. Well, below that, this is supposed to be a Christian country. We have Christmas. Let's celebrate it, says Susan Hall.
Actually, other religions are not offended by the celebration of Christmas in a Christian country. You speak to Hindus and Buddhists and the vast majority of Muslims, they're not in the slightest bit bothered and actually will join in those celebrations as well. It doesn't offend them. But what you've got are marketing divisions within these big companies where you've got Tarquin and Tabitha who feel that we must, you know, do what we can do to not offend the great British public. And the great British public are the ones that are actually buying the product and they're not in the slightest bit offended.
Can I just say it offends me that we've got Christmas already and it's not December.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
10:24, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Miriam. It's Christmas, so we're putting on an exciting event. We want lots of you there too.
Yes, on Saturday the 13th of December, you're all invited to join the GB News family for our Carols by Candlelight concert. And for your chance to join us, you can apply for tickets to the service by scanning the QR code, which is on the screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/carols.
Yeah, what if you don't know how to use a QR code? I've never used a QR code in my life.
I don't think you even know what it is.
No, not really.
Well, use the website then. Or
by the way,
can send a stamped addressed envelope. Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure where to.
A highlight of the concert is going to be Mrs. Miriam Cates, playing the Joanna.
Not agreed yet. It's not
she's playing the piano.
Really?
She's playing the piano.
Fantastic.
She's a lovely pianist.
So no end to your
Andrew's going to do the Once in Royal solo.
I'll do the Once in Royal and I'll turn the pages for the music. I can
Don't
sing
let him sing.
I can sing, actually. If you don't
Well, we better talk about the run-up to Christmas with Jonathan Liss and Carol Malone. Jonathan, was this budget the nightmare before Christmas with the Grinch as predicted?
Absolutely not. I'm really happy. I'm really happy with this budget. And surprisingly, I was actually very pleasantly surprised by it, Miriam. I think that it did a lot for the left. Labour has finally, belatedly realised that they are losing both their right flank and their left flank. They have to take the left flank seriously. They've taken them for granted for the last year and a half. That is why I don't know what goes on inside Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves's heads. I don't know how left-wing they are. What I do see is that they've lifted the two-child benefit cap, which is going to immediately lift hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty, because I don't think that any child should be responsible for what their parents do. They've increased the minimum wage for 18 to 20-year-olds. They've frozen rail fares.
Did you hear our conversation
fuel
with
duty?
Jonathan, can I jump in there? Did you hear the conversation we had with the guys who run 6 fish and chip shops in Southampton? Most of their 60 staff are aged between 18 and 21, so they're going to have to pay up by 8.5%. He said they will be using fewer staff.
Andrew, I think we have to put this into...
Can we just respond to what they said? They are running the business, Jonathan. They said they will have... they'll be able to afford fewer staff.
Andrew,
it's going to put people out of work.
I hear the argument.
Right.
I also say that those kids, or those 18 to 20-year-olds, are being paid less than older people, so presumably fish and chip restaurants will still need to hire people. And, you know, that people have... It's, if you put it into perspective, this is £10 to £10.85. We are earning a lot more than that, and some of us are a lot more than that. And I think that it's very childish to begrudge people,
can we just talk about the reality of this budget here? You're talking about 10.25 and a wage. This has put 1 more million pensioners into paying tax, which now means there's going to be 10 million more...
because they're earning so much more money.
There are going to be 10 million pensioners paying tax
because the triple lockdown.
Yeah, the triple lock, they're going to get a 4.8% rise this year, pensioners. People who don't do any work at all, who are on benefits, are going to get a 4% pay rise. So why shouldn't the most vulnerable in our society, who have actually paid into it, get a pay rise?
I'm not
Why
saying
shouldn't
that.
they?
I'm not saying that you shouldn't have.
Stop concentrating on parents who are going to have more kids they can afford, and people like all of us here are going to have to pay for them. I really resent that. That's going to put an extra £3 billion on the welfare bill every year. And for a family that has got 6 kids or more, 14 grand on top of what they already get every year. It's monstrous.
Well,
this budget has shafted working people and giving it to the people the jobless, the millions and millions of people who are languishing on sickness benefits, on unemployment benefits, on whatever, PIP benefits. This Labour government is rewarding people who don't work. It's actually forcing a dependency on the state. It's outrageous. This is full-blooded socialism.
Well, that's what the Telegraph says, and I'm sure that you would agree with the Telegraph, but I just don't.
Stop talking about papers. I'm talking about the reality of this budget on working people.
I don't believe that children should go hungry, no matter how.
They're not going hungry. No, they're not going hungry. Do you know what relative poverty is? Do you know what it is? Because that's what we're talking about, taking kids out of relative poverty.
Well, it goes by the median. It goes by the median income.
Yes, of course it does. 60% of the median.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So what difference?
That is not people. That is not kids starving and people going.
No, I didn't.
Do you know how many
starving.
pensioners?
I said that children go hungry.
Do you know how many
children
pensioners
do go hungry.
queue up for food banks every week? And do you know what?
I don't think anyone should be hungry. I think that pensions should also rise by inflation. I just don't think we should have a triple lock.
Do you know what the NHS's advice to pensioners who are cold this winter was? It made me weep yesterday. Put old towels in the cracks in the doors. That's this country's advice for pensioners who are cold.
Carol, I would support increasing the winter fuel allowance for the poorest pensioners as well.
You're saying scrap the triple lock.
I'm saying scrap the triple lock because I think you shouldn't raise it by inflation. That's one measure. I think that's completely fair.
Because of inflation?
You're talking about because we don't have a triple lock for anything else.
One at a time.
Food inflation is now 5%. How are pensioners supposed to eat if their benefit
should rise within line with inflation. I think that's a standard principle across everything. Wages should rise by inflation, pensions should rise by inflation, minimum wage should rise by inflation. I have a consistent approach. You're saying some people are more deserving of benefits than others.
Can we go back to the 18 to 21? The Resolution Foundation, which you probably approve of, a very left-wing think tank, said the 8.5% increase for 18 to 20-year-olds is a terrible mistake because it means fewer of those young people will get jobs. Because if you've got to pay, they're going to employ older people, because which means a lot of 18 to 20 will stay on benefits or won't get a job at all. That's the Resolution Foundation saying that, Jonathan. It's a mistake and it will have the opposite effect. It won't get more of them into work. It will mean fewer of them will get a job.
I think that when you have rising inflation, it's sensible and fair to increase the minimum wage in line.
8.5%.
Well, if you look at the levels of inflation that we've had, over the last few years, I don't begrudge young people a pay rise. I see the argument. Time will tell if that happens. Forecasts, we know, are wrong sometimes. What we do have, an OBR forecast, which I'm sure you'll say is wrong, is a 1.5% growth for next year, which is more than was being expected.
Let's look at the levels of growth that she actually said was going to happen, Ms. Reeves. In 2026, it was supposed to be 1.9. It's going to go down to 1.4. It was supposed to be, in the next year, 1.8. It's now predicted at 1.6. In the following year, 1.7 down to 1.5. So every year, everything she stood up and said yesterday about how this country was going to grow was tosh.
Well, people like you have been saying that she's going to crash the economy, and clearly that hasn't happened either. We're not seeing negative growth.
We're not
seeing sort of endless recessions like we saw under David Cameron.
This doesn't really solve any long-term problems. There's no... She's avoided a crash, like you say. The black hole was smaller than it could have been.
She's done more than that, Miriam. She's also increased the fiscal head. Look, I agree with you. This was not a reforming budget. It wasn't claiming to be a reforming budget. I hope that we do see reforming budgets in the next few years. Hopefully, if these problems are sort of being solved, then she can go on to do some reforms, which I hope she does do, because clearly taxation in this country has many problems.
Why do you think that in all of these taxes she's imposed, and this is like nearly 68 billion quid worth of taxes over the past 2 years, why do you think she's not cutting down the welfare budget that's nudging 100 billion quid? Why do you think she hasn't tackled that? She's tackled everybody else.
Well, she tried to, but I don't actually think that's the right thing to do.
But she would have lost her job, so she hasn't.
Carol, Jonathan, we have to leave it there.
Because we're going to go to our 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Can we carry this on?
Thank you very much. The top stories. Rachel Reeves will face further questions after delivering a budget that raised tax by £26 billion, but was overshadowed by an unprecedented leak. After delivering her tax-raising budget, she acknowledges she's asking ordinary people to pay a little bit more. Net migration to the UK fell to 204,000 in the year to June, new figures show. That's a drop from 649,000 in the year to June 2024, a fall of around two-thirds. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood said we are going further because the pace and scale of migration has placed immense pressure on local communities. Donald Trump has called for every Afghan national who entered the US under the Biden administration to be investigated. That's following the shooting of 2 National Guard troops near the White House. And 3 people have been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter over a deadly fire which engulfed a high-rise residential complex in Hong Kong. Authorities say at least 55 people, including 1 firefighter, were killed and around 279 still missing from the blaze. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up next, net migration to the UK hits the lowest annual figure since 2021. We'll be looking at the reasons why, but migrant hotel use has gone up.
And 53,000 migrants have gone missing. Funny that. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's fair to say it's quite a bit milder than it was this time yesterday for many of us, and the milder theme's going to continue through today, but with that it's also going to be quite cloudy and a bit wet at times. We have some rain across northern and western areas at the moment, and a lot of that is going to filter a bit further east and southeast as we go through the day, but it's going to take quite a while to move through, so actually some parts of the southeast staying largely dry at least through daylight hours. That is. Now, as I mentioned, it's mild, markedly milder than it was this time yesterday, and temperatures rising through the day. We're looking at highs around 13, 14 Celsius, so a fair few degrees above average for the time of year. But we do need to watch out for some strong blustery winds. Breezy for all of us, but the strongest winds will be across northern and western parts of Scotland as we go through this evening, and overnight gusts of 60 to 70, perhaps 75 miles per hour here. Also, plenty of showers across northern and western Scotland. Some of them could be quite heavy. A few showers across parts of Northern Ireland through this evening. Some clearer weather across much of northern England and Wales, but across central, southern, eastern England, it's a cloudy, damp end to the day, but eventually that rain is going to clear away towards the southeast around midnight time. I'm expecting it to clear away entirely. Otherwise then, clearer skies following in behind for most, but still plenty of showers towards the north and west. Still those strong winds to watch out for as well towards northwest Scotland. Temperatures not dropping as low as they have done through some recent nights. Despite the clear skies, that breeze will stop it from getting especially chilly. Then Friday actually looks like a largely fine start for many. Still breezy for sure, but a lot of sunshine to be had first thing. More showers developing as we go through the day, coming in from the west and fairly frequent across parts of Scotland. Some winteriness mixed in over the higher ground too. Watch out as those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain at times, and temperatures around average, so not quite as high as they are today.
Thank you, Britain, for sharing over 5 million comments on your say, because when you talk, we listen.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A96 west of Elgin is closed due to a vehicle fire. And on the trains, Chiltern Railways face disruptions between West Ruislip and London Marylebone, and cross-country services are affected between Bournemouth and Brockenhurst. The A19 northbound exit slipped to the A1231 in Sunderland has one lane closed due to a collision. In Derbyshire, drivers should be cautious on the A38 southbound between junctions with the A610 and A61 due to lane closures. Norfolk's A11 southbound between the A47 and A1075 is slowed by a breakdown. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 23 minutes to 11. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom.
We've got some breaking news coming to Newsroom about immigration, and GB News Home Security Mark White is here to tell us more.
Yes, the Office for National Statistics and indeed the Home Office statistics are out today. Lots of interest on what that net migration figure is. We can tell you that it is 204,000 for the year to June 2025, which is 2/3 lower than a year earlier, which was 649,000. We knew it was going to be quite low because the 6-month figures were out that showed that it was down after some revision to 345,000. The government, the Home Secretary, has said she's delighted by the figures and that this government is implementing more changes that should bring that figure down even more. I should say it's still a very significant figure. Having said that, 204,000, many people will still see that as unacceptably high. We're joined by Tom Fredericks, who is the Home and Security Senior Producer here, crunching more of the figures, this time from the Home Office, that are a bit more up to date to September this year. What does that tell us about small boat arrivals, Tom?
So obviously we're always ahead of the curve on small boats, and it shows us that in the year to September, 46,000 people arrived in small boats. I think we've reported that extensively, and that's obviously a big increase on the previous year, 53%. But interestingly, it shows the nationalities, the most common nationalities. Yeah,
it was Afghan.
Exactly. It's now Eritrean is the most common nationality on the small boats. Afghan is second, Iranian, Sudanese, and Somali. Those are the top 5.
You've got an interesting figure, Tom, on the number of asylum claims last year. I think we've hit record territory by the looks of it.
Yeah, so basically it looks like in terms of asylum claims, so 110,000 people claimed asylum up to September 2025 in that year. That's 13% more than the previous year, and it's higher than the previous peak of 103,000 in 2002. So in terms of asylum claims, that's rocketed over the years, and we're at record levels. And half of those asylum seekers arrived through illegal routes, boats, lorries and those kind of methods. So that shows the scale of the problem, really.
And tell us just a bit further down about the grant rate here.
Yeah, so 134,000 people received initial decisions on asylum claims in the year ending 2025, September. That's 31% higher than the previous year. And a higher number of decisions than every year between 2003 and 2022. That's decisions. Almost half, 45% of the initial decisions to main applicants in the year ending September 2025 are grants. Now that is technically a smaller proportion than the 52% in the previous year. So the asylum system is bulging, is still bulging, and the interesting part is the number of cases in the system, according to the Home Office, that there were 62,000 cases awaiting an application. Now that's fewer than before, so they are getting through the backlog. Many people are in hotels. It's worth just mentioning very quickly before we go that the number of people in hotels has gone up.
Yeah, if we look at those two figures,
these two tables here, 32,041 in June 2025, that's earlier on this year. It's gone up to 36,273. That's because so many people are coming on the boats.
OK, thanks for that, Tom. So despite the government's avowed wish to end the use of asylum seeker hotels, it's clear they're failing on that particular score at the moment.
Mark, Tom, thank you very much. Well, joining us now in the studio, we've got Rob Bates, who is the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control.
Morning.
Good morning, Rob. Now, from a zoomed-out perspective, these figures look good. Immigration's coming down. But it's not as simple as that, is it? Tell us what's going on.
Well, no, and it's a bit rich for the Home Secretary to be claiming this is in any way a victory on behalf of the Labour Party. This was, of course, the measures that the Tories brought in at the very end of their last government, actually to try and tackle what they had, frankly, allowed to explode as an immigration system, completely out of control, tackling dependence. But when you actually consider the fact that, those visas that were granted in the last 12 months to September 2025, 900,000 foreign nationals being given the right to enter the UK. It is still a huge, huge number. And I actually think the net migration figure that we're talking about, we're hearing the 204,000, is somewhat deceptive because, of course, a large number of those leaving the country are British nationals, and that therefore means that the number is lower than it would otherwise be. So if we look at the actual net migration figure for foreign nationals, it is 313,000 for the last 12 months. And that is more important metric because that gives you a sense of the churn in the labour market. That gives you actually the real indication of sort of where society is going and some of the tension that might be.
Where are they coming from, the 313,000?
So legally, the sort of top 5 nationalities are Nigeria, Pakistan, India, China, and then Zimbabwe or other countries sort of vie for that 5th spot. But that is very much sort of a settled situation now that we've seen after Brexit, that those sort of 5 nationalities make up the huge proportion of those coming into the country. I think since 2021 we've seen net migration of Indians alone is 800,000. So this is really an important thing to recognise, as well as, of course, these individuals are more likely to come to the UK and stay for a very long period of time and get that settled status than perhaps people when we're in the European Union, you sort of Poles and Romanians, who would perhaps come for 5 or 10 years and then return back to their country of origin. So I think where the conversation needs to go actually is what can we do to increase the emigration levels? Because if we don't start tackling the fact that many more people are coming to the country, staying and then sort of eventually getting that settled status and signing on to welfare, then we're going to end up with real fiscal problems stored up as a result of an immigration policy that was really rushed through without any democratic mandate after we left the European Union.
Now, tell us about the figures of people leaving the country, because, of course, the net immigration figure is after taking off the number of people leaving. Quite surprising about the age of those people. Yes,
so Carl William at the Centre for Policy Studies has done a really important sort of analysis of this, and he's recognised that actually those Brits that are leaving the country are the sort of the youngest, the best and brightest, those that should actually really be staying in the country to help us rebuild what is frankly a dire economic situation, and rather than actually doing anything to retain them, we seem to be very happy to see an increased outflow, a huge outflow, and of course the ONS has been massively underestimating the number of Brits that are actually leaving the country over the last few years. So we're seeing a huge outflow of Brits, and in return what we are seeing is sort of the immigration system replacing them with low-skilled migration from overseas, and that really does have a huge impact on the cohesiveness of the labour market, because if you've got people that have been socialised in the country, they're much easier to sort of slip into a slipstream.
And those people who are leaving, a lot of them are under the age of 30.
A lot of them are, 16 to 24, I think, is the largest bracket. And this is, you kind of think these are people that maybe some of them have gone to university and rather than setting up a business or wanting to contribute to Britain economically, they've decided their horizons are better set elsewhere, and that is a really sad state of affairs. And it's really important to recognise that as these numbers of Brits leaving continue to increase, which I think they will certainly under this government, that actually that will inevitably mean that the overall picture where migration is does not seem as acute and as much of a problem as it really is. I think we're at a risk at the moment, because sort of numbers have come down from their historic highs, that we sort of get used to the idea that 200,000, 300,000 net is somehow normal. This is not normal.
It's a major city, isn't it?
It is every single year, and this was, it was at those numbers that people voted to leave the European Union because they wanted to take back control of their borders. So, just because we've sort of seen real abomination of an immigration policy doesn't in any way justify just reverting back to those already historically high levels that many people were disenfranchised as a result of.
And what should the government do, very briefly?
The government needs to hurry through any reforms it is planning to do to settle status and make sure that it is very difficult for individuals to obtain. It needs to start looking to ensure that many individuals on certain visa routes don't actually even have the right to obtain that status, because I think that the big problem here now is ensuring that those leaving does increase, and it also needs to sort of address ridiculous policies when it comes to the number of international students we have to have in university. I think the Tories introduced a plan that at least 600,000 foreign students had to be studying at UK universities every single year, and that's a large reason why inward migration is so high, because about 400,000 individuals every single year come to study at UK universities. A lot of them very sort of low quality, low tariff universities that frankly actually, if they went to the wall, it wouldn't be the worst thing for British society. So they need to actually clamp down on that visa route, but then the most important thing is ensuring that emigration actually increases as a level.
Yes. Bob Bates, thank you very much. Great analysis, as usual.
Now, up next, Donald Trump on the warpath after 2 National Guardsmen were shot in Washington by an Afghan.
And we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
There's some further heavy, thundery rain affecting parts of Eastern Europe as we go through the next few days, particularly Greece and Albania. But starting off further west, yes, some rain pushing into the far northwest of Spain, but actually ahead of that, tomorrow looks largely fine and dry. A few bits of rain across the southern parts of Italy, but as I mentioned, it's further east, Greece, Turkey, Albania, where we're going to see heavy rain building up. Some places could see 250 millimetres through this week, enough to cause some disruption.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
It's 11 minutes to 11 and you're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
2 National Guard troops have been critically wounded last night in what Donald Trump called a monstrous ambush-style attack.
Well, the suspect, who's been identified as an Afghan migrant, was also shot and taken to hospital.
In response, the President has demanded investigations into every Afghan national entered the States under the Biden administration and suspended all immigration requests from Afghan nationals. Well, let's talk to the studio spokesperson for Republicans Overseas, Jennifer Ewing. This is shocking, but quick action by the President.
Yeah, very quick action by the President. I'm guessing there'll be some people in the United Kingdom this morning that wish that sometimes there was quicker action over here. So, you know, also, as you'll know, today's Thanksgiving, so just very, very sad, you know, for these families involved. But what we know so far is this Afghan national, he was part of a Biden-era project after the terrible Afghanistan withdrawal, where the United States basically made special visa entries for about 90,000 Afghan nationals. Now, while many of them were wonderful people, most of them were unvetted, and so you end up with situations where you really don't know who these people are, what their feelings are about the United States. And it was kind of a mix, I think, of a real, almost like a blood guilt that the U.S. felt because the withdrawal had been so disastrous. They're like, let's welcome these people into our country. The irony and the tragedy, of course, is that the entire reason that we said we were going to Afghanistan many years ago is to keep terrorists out of the United States. And then, you know, and while we don't know if this person will be charged under the Terrorist Act, it's more likely because it did take place in D.C. and was against federal officers. These people were from West Virginia, deputized to help out in the sort of cleaning up of Washington, D.C. So if they can prove that there's a political motive behind this, which, you know, we don't want to guess, but then it could be, he could be charged under terrorism.
So when Donald Trump says that he now wants every Afghan migrant to be vetted or researched, that's potentially 90,000 people.
Potentially, as many of those will have been vetted. I personally know people who took in a former Afghan general and his family and a baby, and, you know, they had definitely been vetted. They were good people. Nothing's gone wrong. So all 90,000 of those will not. But we did already discover, I believe it was in June of this year, that 45 showed up on the terrorist watch list. Now, they then reduced that to 9, but 9 of the people, you know, that we found out were on the terrorist watch list. So, again, I think it was, you know, terrible withdrawal in 2021 and a really bad just immigration policies from my country, definitely under the Biden administration, that definitely need to be corrected.
They were just slapdash. Didn't do anything.
Very slapdash, letting tons of people. I mean, 90,000 people is an extraordinary amount of people. So, again, it's Thanksgiving. We pray for the families of these National Guardsmen.
We do.
Jennifer Ewing, thank you so much for keeping us updated on that story.
Now, Reform's Nigel Farage has released a letter to the nation. Find out how he plans to fix broken Britain.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The wind's picking up today. It can be very windy across northern Scotland tonight. Those winds bringing in pretty mild air, also a lot of cloud, and for some, outbreaks of rain. Low pressure is the reason why. Sitting up to the northwest, the isobars squeezing together. This weather front bringing some pretty soggy conditions across parts of western Scotland, Northern Ireland, but there's also bands of showers crossing England and Wales. Parts of eastern England may well stay dry. It should get a bit brighter through the afternoon for parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland, but increasingly blustery here. Everywhere the wind's steadily picking up, but as I said, bringing mild air. It's much, much milder compared to this time yesterday. Temperatures getting up to 13 or 14 Celsius. Now we'll see further outbreaks of rain coming in across England and Wales through the evening time, but it's further north where we're mostly concerned about the winds really picking up overnight across northern and westernmost parts of Scotland. Gusts of 60, maybe 70 miles an hour, perhaps even 75 miles an hour through the night in some exposed areas. Those strong winds bringing plenty of heavy showers, even the odd thunderstorm moving through. For England and Wales, we'll see these bands of showery rain working from west to east, kind of fizzling out as they do so. And clearer skies should follow for northern England, the Midlands and Wales before midnight. Plenty of showers packing in on those very gusty winds across northern Scotland. As I said, that yellow warning in place through the night and into Friday morning. Elsewhere, the clearer skies will develop. Not as cold as a couple of nights ago, but colder than the night just gone, with temperatures dropping to about 6 or 7 Celsius. As I said, that warning remains in place into Friday morning. Gusty conditions across northern and western Scotland. Further band of heavy showers coming in across England and Wales too. So some heavy rain for a time. A bit of sunshine either side of that. Still blustery, but the wind's easing down for many of us tomorrow compared to the rest of today. And still quite mild, double digits for large parts of the country.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB 17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 11 o'clock. You're watching GB News. It's Thursday the 27th of November and here's Andrew. Thank you for joining me. We're live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pierce now and Miriam Cates.
Well, the budget's gone down so badly for some.
These are my choices, the right choices for a fairer, a stronger and more secure Britain.
Yes, the Chancellor has raised taxes by £26 billion, taking the tax burden to a record high, with workers, savers and businesses taking the hit. Rachel Reeves told GB News that the budget focuses on her priorities.
Cutting the cost of living, cutting NHS waiting lists and cutting debt and borrowing. And I achieved those things in my budget, my second budget as Chancellor of the Exchequer yesterday.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I've identified a way to save taxpayers huge amounts of money by sacking just one person, a woman sitting opposite.
Well, Conservative leader Kemi Baynott went on the attack. It was a savage attack, calling Rachel Reeves the worst ever Chancellor, branding her budget a smorgasbord of misery.
Well, here in Stoke, we're going to be finding out from a pub how exactly that budget has gone down with the hospitality industry, but also local businesses here in the area.
We're in the market town of Morley in West Yorkshire near Leeds, speaking to traders about the impact that the budget has had on them.
And breaking news this morning, migrant hotel use is up, net migration is down and 53,000 illegal migrants are on the run.
and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them.
Overnight, President Trump spoke from the White House after 2 National Guardsmen were shot in Washington, D.C. The suspected gunman, an Afghan migrant.
Andrew, I think the most concerning thing about the new migration figures that are out today is the number of young people that left the country last year. Nearly 250,000 people, British people, left the UK.
Terrible, isn't it?
And all but 2% of them were under 34.
Really bad. That's the future. That's potential doctors, teachers, and parents.
Yeah. Absolutely, and of course people have different views about migration and what level it should be at, but surely everybody can agree that so many of our own young people leaving the country for good is really bad.
And a lot of them, they've done their university education, they're paid, which they owe a lot of money for, a lot of them, of course, and then they clear off because they think there's better prospects abroad, and that budget would have done nothing to make them want to stay.
That's right, because
I'm afraid.
if they're ambitious and they want a job where they might be earning more than average, they're now paying higher rate tax. I mean, there are some countries in Europe where young people don't pay tax at all, or Hungary, for example. If you have 2 or more children, you no longer pay income tax. Whereas here, they're paying more and more.
And 900,000 people, as a result of that budget yesterday, being dragged into the higher rate of tax at 40%. 900,000.
And at the lower end of pay, you've now got the minimum wage has gone up so much that the minimum you can now earn is $26,000 a year. Well, a teacher's starting salary is just $30,000. Why would you go into teaching, such a really, really difficult, exhausting, sometimes dangerous job, when for just a little bit less you can do a minimum wage job? Doesn't make sense.
As ever, we'd like to know what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you. The top stories. Rachel Reeves will face further questions after delivering a budget that raised tax by £26 billion but was overshadowed by an unprecedented leak. Rachel Reeves acknowledges she's asking ordinary people to pay a little bit more. The Chancellor's decisions put Britain on course for a record tax burden as she hiked levies after weaker economic forecasts left holes in her previous spending plans. Many will pay higher rates of tax as their pay increases as the Chancellor freezes income tax thresholds until 2031. The government says the increases are also needed to pay for the increased welfare spending, with Rachel Reeves announcing the abolition of the 2-child benefit cap expected to lift 450,000 children out of poverty. She defended her tax increases, saying they're necessary.
I did have to increase taxes yesterday, but I've kept them to an absolute minimum on ordinary working people, freezing those thresholds for an additional 3 years from 2028. So more money in people's pockets, whether those are working families or indeed pensioners.
But Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride said Labour's measures would lead to 25,000 more people going onto benefits as a direct consequence of making them more attractive.
What has happened in this budget is just a second instalment of the disaster that we had in the first budget in the autumn of last year. Huge tax increases on hard-working people, whilst at the same time giving in to the pressures from their own backbenchers in the Labour Party and putting up benefits. That is not the way to get growth going. And in fact, in the OBR's numbers, you can see growth being damaged throughout the period compared to the forecast in the spring, unemployment going up every single year compared to the last forecast, and real living standards actually declining compared to last spring as a consequence of the choices that the government's taken.
Net migration to the UK fell to 204,000 in the year to June, new figures show. That's a drop from 649,000 in the year to June 2024, a fall of around 2/3. The Office for National Statistics says the fall is driven by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work and study and a gradual increase in levels of emigration. The number of asylum seekers, meanwhile, being housed temporarily in UK hotels at the end of September was 36,273, which is up 13% on the figure in June, according to Home Office data. Donald Trump has called for every Afghan national who entered the US under the Biden administration to be investigated. That's following the shooting of 2 National Guard troops near the White House. The president said the monstrous ambush-style attack was carried out by an Afghan national who arrived in September of 2021 during America's chaotic withdrawal from Kabul. America's Citizenship and Immigration Office said it had stopped processing all immigration requests relating to Afghan nationals indefinitely.
This heinous assault was an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. It was a crime against our entire nation. It was a crime against humanity. As President of the United States, I am determined to ensure that the animal who perpetrated this atrocity pays the steepest possible price.
And 3 construction company executives have been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter over a deadly fire which engulfed a high-rise residential complex in Hong Kong. Authorities say at least 55 people, including 1 firefighter, have been killed and about 279 still missing from the blaze. A further 72 have been injured. A further 45 in hospital in a critical condition. Around 900 people are also now in shelters. It's not known how the fire started, but police said it may have been spread through bamboo scaffolding and construction mesh sheets on one side of the buildings and spread from there, likely aided by windy conditions. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3216 and €1.1414. The price of gold is £3,144.20 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,659 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates. And don't forget, you can listen to us on your radio or smart speaker.
You do listen on the radio because our radio figures are sky high.
We're doing really well.
Very
I'm
good.
one of those listeners.
Yeah.
When I'm not on air, obviously.
Lots of texts and emails.
Yep.
Which Miriam likes to read because she knows I can't. So I don't know how to.
Can't read. How did you get this job?
I just don't know how to access the internet thing. That internet thing.
Oh, Andrew. Right. Anthony says... Reeves was appropriately dressed as the captain of the Titanic.
That's a bit harsh.
Yeah, not as harsh as Kemi Badenoch. Saul says child benefits should be given in vouchers to be exchanged in shops for items that benefit the children. The benefits are for. They kind of did that a little bit during the pandemic, giving out supermarket vouchers for lunch rather than money. And Alison says, how is she tackling the cost of living? Such a good point, because inflation still not under control and still at historic highs.
Certainly is. Well, we finally got the budget after all that never-ending anticipation. She told GB News this a little earlier.
I did have to increase taxes yesterday, but I've kept them to an absolute minimum on ordinary working people, freezing those thresholds for an additional 3 years from 2028. So more money in people's pockets, whether those are working families or indeed pensioners.
Well, the excitement started before the Chancellor stood up to give the budget, because the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, accidentally published the budget in full at 12:15, half an hour before Rachel Reeves was due to stand up and give her statement. Well, here is the moment on the screen that she saw on her phone that report had been published. And obviously there's nothing she can do at that moment. Andrew, she's just got to sit there, wait, give the speech as planned, knowing that it's all out there already.
But it summed up the total chaos in the build-up to the budget with more leaks than we've ever known. Joining us to break it all down is the business journalist Ian King. I mean, that was extraordinary. I mean, and honestly, a laugh out loud moment, wasn't it, Ian?
It was. Well, I mean, I gasped actually rather than laughed. But I mean, look, this was the culmination of 12 weeks of speculation, which every single day seemed to bring either some idea being floated out there in the media to see how it would land, or the leak of something that came out. So this was really, for me, the cherry on the icing at the end of it all. I mean, what was striking about the budget itself is that, I mean, there were literally no surprises. I mean, I was on set with Chris and Gloria yesterday, and we watched it all, and I said, where's the rabbit? Where's the rabbit?
Yeah, it didn't come.
And there wasn't one. I mean, it was just all the sort of the child benefit cap being lifted and the help for with energy bills that we knew was coming. The only genuine surprise for me yesterday was the fact that the freeze in thresholds was 3 years rather than 2. That was the only genuinely new thing that hadn't been in the media beforehand.
And somebody said to me last night what she'll do in the penultimate budget, if she's still there, which I think most unlikely, budget before the election, she'll dramatically lift the freeze.
Possibly.
And then it looked because her husbandry of the economy has been so effective.
Yeah.
That's what she'll do.
Although bear in mind, I mean, here's the interesting thing: all the tax increases, most of them are backloaded.
Yes.
They all are at the end of the Parliament rather than the beginning.
Yeah.
And some people have said, well, this is a bit risky ahead of a likely general election. The truth of the matter is, the reason that she's done that is because she wasn't imposing any taxes on existing things. So she didn't raise the basic rate, for example. Sure, the thresholds have been frozen, and that starts to raise. That doesn't raise much money in the OBR forecasts until later in the Parliament because the thresholds have already been frozen.
Yeah.
You know, all she was doing was extending them. So the big tax increases kick in towards the end of this Parliament, the salary sacrifice, which is 4.7 billion. That's the second biggest item after the threshold freezes. The mansion tax, all of this stuff is... And the first 2 years, the mansion tax is actually going to cost the government money because it's going to have a behavioural impact. They've got 2 years of reassessing valuations.
Why will it cost people money? Why will it cost in those 2 years?
Because for the first 2 years, they're going to be doing valuations. So they can't strike homeowners with that until they've got a new valuation on the property. In the meantime, you're going to get behavioural effects. So, for example, this time last year, and you thought you had a house that was worth 2 million, you'd be proud of it. You'd be shouting from the rooftops about it. Now you're going to be doing your damnedest to make sure that it's valued at 1.999.
Of course you are.
And so you're going to see bunching around the thresholds. You're going to see people, I mean, it's in the OBR report. They say you're going to see some people challenging the valuations.
Of course.
There'll be attempts to avoid it. So there'll be all manner of ways in which this is going to cost money. And also behavioural effects. The big one, of course, is that it's going to unnerve people in some cases from moving house.
Yes.
You're not going to trade up the property ladder if you think you're going to be stuck for an extra couple of £1,000 a year in council tax.
It's starting at 2,500, going up to 7,500.
And so that's one of the behavioural responses that I'm talking about, because potentially you get fewer transactions. So if you're the Treasury, you get less money in stamp duty.
And also, the closer we get to the next general election, people will be looking at, for example, the Conservatives who have said they will scrap stamp duty. Well, again, why would you move a year before an election if an incoming government could save you tens of thousands of pounds?
Absolutely.
So everything's going to grind to a halt.
Absolutely. I mean, the mansion tax, by the way, is the most extraordinarily badly designed tax. I mean, Paul Johnson, the very influential former head of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, has been making this point this morning. George Osborne reformed stamp duty back in 2014, and he got rid of the slab system where you had these real cliff edge movements that, again, you saw loads of bunching around those cliff edges. Well, they basically reintroduced that with this council tax surcharge. It's extraordinarily inefficient.
And he's pretty much saying as well, it's for what it's going to raise, up to 400 million. He said, will it raise that much? And is it worth the grief?
It's buttons. It's £400 million in the scheme
terms of our economy.
This was a piece of red meat that she could toss to the
backbenchers.
backbenchers.
Yeah, call it a mansion tax, but it isn't really.
And they cheered it to the rafters.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Ian, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your insight this morning. Well, also in yesterday's budget announcement, the Chancellor addressed a group of people who've been unhappy for some time. That is farmers. Take a listen.
The reforms I made last year will raise an additional £8 billion a year by 2020-30 from wealth. I increased taxes last year on private equity, private schools and private jets. I reformed inheritance tax on agricultural and business assets. And this year...
Well, let's hear what farmers think. Kelly Seaton joins us live from Cheshire. Kelly, was there any good news for farmers in yesterday's budget?
No, not really. Dairy farming is facing another tumultuous time at the moment, with dairy farmers decreasing farm farmgate milk prices by anything from 5 to 11 pence per litre. On top of that, the wages are now increasing. And this leaves only one thing that's going to happen is the consumer and the farmer are going to pay for the wage increases for one of the lowest paid sectors in our industry, which is the retail market. We are looking at Tesco's reporting profits of 3.1 billion this year, up from 2.9 billion, and forecast Sainsbury's for over £1 billion this year. They're not going to pay this. Yeah. It's going to be the farmers. It's going to be the consumer. We have farmers at the moment facing some of their milk next year being sold at 1 pence per litre on B-price milking.
Kelly, do you lose? Will they be losing money on that, farmers?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Cost of production is anything from 27 to 30 pence per litre on average at the moment. Some will get that a bit lower, but at 1 pence per litre, and you can't budget for this. You don't know how much of your milk is going to go on 1 pence per litre. Yeah. The only people that are going to profit from this are the big boys, the Tesco's, the Sainsbury's, the Morrisons potentially.
And is this going to make more and more farmers think about their future in the industry?
Yeah, we're seeing record numbers of farmers leaving the industry. Dairy farming in particular has been reduced by huge percentages over the last 25 years. It's a stark move towards more food insecurity, I think.
So another reminder, Kelly, why we've got to buy British when we go to our supermarket. Look out for British products from your farms.
Yes, absolutely.
Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again soon. And good luck to all the farmers out there. Another bad day.
Yeah, there was very little comfort in that budget.
And the minimum wage rise is going to hit them too, and all sorts of other measures.
What do people in Stoke-on-Trent think? GB News reporter Jack Carson is there to tell us how the budget is going in one of the poorest towns in Britain.
Thank you very much. Well, of course, this is an area politically, of course, you know, former Red Wall. In that 2019 election, kind of some seats obviously went Conservative, but we're here to find out really what they think of that budget yesterday. We're in the old Bulldog, of course, Albert here, the beautiful Bulldog. Joining us, our very special guest this morning, but Mike Newton, who is the owner of this pub, also joins us now. Of course, preparations all underway here at the pub to get ready for opening. I mean, Mike, reflecting on that budget yesterday, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, it certainly did us no favours, Jack. I mean, we were hit very hard last year. We've been hit again this year. And more importantly to me, what is the impact on the customers? Because if my customers do great, we do great too. But this budget was an attack on working people, and I'm very sorry that Labour went against their manifesto and acted like this.
I mean, one of the things which would probably affect you is that rise to the national living wage. I mean, what kind of impact is that going to have?
Well, as you can see, Jack, we've got great staff here, so I really don't mind paying them more. But to me, the real issue has been national insurance contributions last year, and this year, the hit to business rates. We've estimated that our business rate charge is going to go up by 25%, which is quite a bit. There's also things like alcohol duty. Our utility bills remain stubbornly high, but it boils down to the fact that out of 88 measures in the budget, 0 of them, according to the Office for Budget Responsibility, were scored as being pro-growth. There were 43 tax rises, and that leaves the overall economy in pretty bad shape, which, as Rachel Reeves herself said this morning, it's a policy choice, and my clients are going to suffer.
Now, alcohol duty, you mentioned it there. That's one of the things changing from February 2026. It has been condemned yesterday from the Wine and Spirits Trade Association. I mean, how do you feel about that alcohol duty? Because the government, they said, they're effectively trying to provide that balance. Do you think they've got that balance right?
Not really, no. I mean, look, I'm a realist. I appreciate that the government does have to get revenue from somewhere. But look what's going on around here. We're creating jobs. You know, we've provided 25,000 worth of investment since I took the pub over 5 years ago in Stoke-on-Trent. You know, we are providing good quality jobs to local people. We're providing a service to a hard-working area. And I very much resent money being taken away from my customers and from my business to be given to social welfare, perhaps to people who don't want to work.
All right, Mike Newton, owner of the Old Bulldog, thank you very much, because we're going to be here all day finding out not only just what Mike thinks, but also other people here, of course, they're regulars and locals, but also people that run businesses here in the area as well.
Jack Carson in Stoke, thank you very much for that report.
Now, friends of GB News can vote in today's cliffhanger poll. by scanning the QR code now. Was the Chancellor right to scrap the 2-child benefit cap? And remember, a year ago she said the country couldn't afford it. The results so far, pretty overwhelming, Miriam.
Yes, 2% say yes and 98% say no. And you can vote for free by becoming a friend of GB News.
Now, don't forget, there's only a few weeks left until Christmas and time is running out for you to enjoy it all on us. Here is how you get a super-duper festive treat, courtesy of GB News.
There's just 28 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you can enjoy it on us. That's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 fantastic. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family, the tree and decorations. £1,000 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB 17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 8th of December. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, the Reform leader, Nigel Farage, has penned a letter to the nation pledging how he will fix it.
And in fact, he's taken out double-page advertisements in quite a lot of the newspapers today. A big full-page picture of him and the letter saying why he will fix it. So we'll be going through that and more with the... I'm not saying that word, revered. Do you think they're revered?
Well,
the
by many of our viewers, I'm sure.
Jonathan Liss and Carol Malone. Somebody says they're revered, not me. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 26 minutes past 11. I'm so sorry. Our producers are making jokes in our ears that you can't hear, and I can't
reminding
repeat.
people that I said an unfortunate word the other day, for which I apologised on air, and which Miriam Cates is considering using as her ring phone.
It was the campest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Campest?
People, darling.
People are lucky they haven't heard you say more.
Anybody who wasn't watching on Monday has no idea what we're talking about, but they will now be going to look it up.
I'm not going to enlighten you, but I said something I shouldn't have said because I thought I was off air, and it's the old rule, Mike's live.
I'm going to play it at the office Christmas
we're
party.
putting on an exciting event where there'll be no inappropriate language. We want lots of you there too.
Keep going, Andrew.
On Saturday, 30th of December, you can join the GB News family for our Carols by Candlelight concert. Not as in Carol Malone, as in Christmas carols.
Yes.
If you're charged with us, you can apply for tickets by scanning the QR code, whatever that is, on screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/carols. It's going to be recorded and broadcast on Christmas Eve, and Miriam Cates is playing the Joanna.
Well, we'll see. It's not in my contract yet. Well, we're joined now, getting back to the serious news of the week, by Jonathan Liss and Carol Malone in the studio. Thanks for coming back to the studio. Now, we were halfway through a passionate argument about the budget an hour ago.
We were.
One of the problems with it, I think, Carol, is that the spending starts now, the spending increase, but the tax rises to fund it don't actually kick in in 3 or 4 years' time.
And my fervent hope, Miriam, is that in 3 or 4 years' time, this shower will be out of government and they will never actually be imposed. I'm hoping that's the case, because people are shocked and horrified by what happened yesterday, apart from Jonathan, obviously, who thinks it's a great thing.
Mira liked it too, actually.
I was watching it yesterday. I don't know whether you guys thought it. I was listening to her and I thought, you really aren't very well, because she was saying things like, stuff like, and we are encouraging the brightest and the best to come here.
They're leaving.
257,000 have left this year. Does she not actually know that?
But we can't help the wages in Australia.
Yes, and these were the entrepreneurs, the business people, the people that are making money. They've all gone.
Carol, the thing
because
is
of what's happening in this country.
People, look, if you are a young person, for example, and you've just qualified as a doctor, and you see that in Australia you can earn twice as much money. No, I'm sorry, but you're talking about it.
Jonathan,
Rachel Reeves cannot do anything about that.
Because in Australia, they don't have a national health service, and so they can pay higher wages. They have private medicine in Australia. Here, everyone wants to keep it for everyone here.
That's not the point.
Well, it is
How is that the point? People, of course, will want to go where there are better salaries.
The point, but it isn't just doctors and
just ask
nurses
you about the chance herself. As a woman,
yes.
What did you think about her complaining about the mansplaining and the misogyny?
It just makes me laugh, because if it's only men who... She obviously thinks it's just men who don't like her. But there's a whole legion of women who think she's a numpty as well.
No.
I'm not I can't be a misogynist, and I think she really doesn't know what she's
Carol,
doing.
you can. First of all, women can be misogynist, but also, I don't think the complaint is that people are criticising her. Every politician has a right to be criticised. I think she's criticising the misogynistic criticism.
No, what they're saying is that if she was a bloke, she wouldn't have been criticised in the same way. I'm sorry, if a bloke was as useless as she is, he would be criticised in exactly the same way.
Wow.
And more importantly, she made that big boast about being the first ever woman chancellor, and frankly, she's let women down.
Well, Carol, look, the markets have responded quite well to the budget, actually. The pound rose yesterday. Markets say that the government did what was needed. They've increased the fiscal headroom. Look, let's bring it back to, if we can just make a fundamental point. The fiscal drag, let's talk about that for a second, because one thing that I agree, and I've said this so many times, but it would actually have been more progressive to increase income tax. If they had not made that pledge, that would have been a lot simpler. It would have actually targeted the top earners more than the lowest paid, who are being dragged into income tax now.
What would have been...
We're going to, on that, we just want to talk about Farage, because he's taken out a double page spread.
Yes, I saw that.
Most newspapers
today,
and it includes a letter to the voters. Carol, tell us what he's saying.
Well, hang on, because I've got to get it now. You can't just spring that on me out of nowhere and say, what is he saying? Let's have a look.
Here's a word from him. Let's have a listen.
It is time to be honest with ourselves. The British economy is in desperate trouble. Despite what politicians pretend, you can see for yourself that nothing works anymore. We have non-existent growth, higher energy prices than anybody else in the world, taxes at a post-war high, £100 billion of annual debt repayment, and uncontrolled immigration that is draining our nation. And that is just the record of 14 years of Conservative government. If things weren't bad enough, we now have economic chaos and a tax-raising budget under Starmer and Reeves.
Right. Well, that was Nigel Farage's view.
Okay. And he's taken out this double pay spread in all the national papers. Said, Carol, that would cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. That shows Reform have got a big chequebook.
Yeah, I think it's also his answer, isn't it, to all the criticism this week, or the criticism about what he might have said 50 years ago in a classroom. So he's come out hard-hitting, and what he's basically telling people what he will do if and when Reform get into power, and he's responding to what he is calling the irresponsibility of this budget. He said, we will proudly be the party of alarm clock Britain, defending the hard-working taxpayers who keep this country running. Reform will strive to make work pay. And he's exactly right to talk about this, because this is really important, because this government is feeding a culture of dependency, a culture of state dependency. And the thing, and Jonathan was talking about what she should have done, what they should have done was attack this welfare bill. You know, just some figures about people. Every day in this country, 5,000 more people are signing on sick. We have 24 million people claiming benefits, and this is a staggering figure. More than 50% of people in households are claiming more in benefits than they pay in tax. How can that be sustainable for any length of time?
It's terrible figures.
Jonathan, obviously you've mentioned that people on the left welcome aspects of this budget, and there's a strong argument that if we're going to pay benefits to the very poorest in dire situation, that it should at least be a decent amount. But do you not accept that the system we have now is actually disincentivising work, and there are people there who are just playing the system?
I think that you've always had people who have played any system. What I disagree with is that is somehow grounds to reform or sort of get rid of the system altogether. That's throwing the baby out of the bathwater. Fine, but obviously there are some people who could be working who aren't. But there are many, many people who are on benefits and are not living the life of Riley. In fact, very, very few people, in fact, no one gets to live the life of Riley on benefits unless they are cheating the system, which obviously some people do. But no, I don't agree with the idea that is somehow a fundamental problem.
Do you think it's weird since COVID that 3 million more people are claiming benefits?
No, I don't, because
COVID
was a generational event, Carol. It was more than a generational event. And it left many people in long-term sickness. It left people with all kinds of mental health problems.
I'm sorry, COVID is done now. It's finished. It's over.
It's effectively
How is it
long-lasting.
going to leave you in long-term sickness? All these people are claiming benefits for their mental health after a pandemic that ended 3 years ago. Come on.
I think that we have a mental health crisis in this country, and it doesn't help anyone to deny that. The governments are always talking about how they need to invest more in mental health. That's because mental health is a serious problem.
But the question
didn't have the chance to mention it once in the budget.
Well, that's...
But the question is the answer to poor mental health being paid not to go to work? That's the big question.
If people can't work, I don't think the answer is destitution. I think that people should be encouraged into work.
Won't work.
There are lots of people who cannot work.
Miriam's absolutely right. You know, every kind of person you speak to about mental health, most of them put a caveat in and say that working actually helps with mental health. Being involved and engaged with people helps.
Routine is so important.
Yes.
Carol, Jonathan, we're going to have to leave it there and go to our 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Miriam, thank you. The top stories. Net migration to the UK fell to 204,000 in the year to June, new figures show. That's a drop from 649,000 in the year to June 2024, a fall of around two-thirds. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says we are going further because the pace and scale of migration has placed immense pressure on local communities. Rachel Reeves will face further questions after delivering a budget that raised tax by £26 billion but was overshadowed by an unprecedented leak. The Chancellor acknowledges she's asking ordinary people to pay a little bit more. Donald Trump has called for every Afghan national who entered the US under the Biden administration to be investigated following the shooting of 2 National Guard troops near the White House. And France is planning to restore its national military service in the face of the growing threat posed by Russia and the risk of a new conflict breaking out in Europe. Those are the headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Up at noon, good afternoon, Britain, with Tom and Dawn. What are you doing, guys?
Well, it's a busy day of fallout, really. I know you've been discussing it a lot, but we're going to do one better than you. We've got the Prime Minister coming on the programme.
Lucky you.
So many questions.
Yeah.
I mean, so many questions.
What time is he on? We'd be glued to that.
Midday.
Midday, yeah,
Right.
absolutely sharp on midday. I mean, the main question is, how can any of us ever trust anything you say ever again?
Quite right.
Love to know what the answer's going to be to that one, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a show of grilling Labour politicians, because we've also got the Business Secretary, Peter Kyle, coming on towards the end of the programme.
Yeah.
And, of course, he's presiding over the department that's introducing the Employment Rights Bill, or as some people like to call it, the Unemployment Rights Bill.
Yes.
Curiously, the Office for Budget Responsibility, when they're not busy leaking the budget ahead of schedule, they actually didn't write anything about the Employment Rights Bill. Now, normally what the OBR does is they say, the government's doing this will have this economic impact. The government's doing this will have that economic impact. They completely ignored the Economic Rights Bill in their analysis of the budget. Why? Well, the suspicion is the Labour government didn't want them to what's called score this bill to sort of determine the economic impacts of it, because the economic impacts are expected to be very negative indeed.
By their own estimation, it will cost at least £5 billion. That's the department bringing in the legislation.
And so this begins to eat into the headroom in the budget that the Chancellor has taxed us all to create.
Yeah. And we're also talking about the latest migration figures as well. Drilling down into those a bit more.
53,000 people gone AWOL.
Exactly.
And more people in migrant hotels.
Yes, and how many... And the net migration, how many of us are actually leaving the country? I should think a fair few more today, to be honest with you.
Most of them, the vast majority, under 35.
Which is really worrying.
Astounding.
Exactly.
Well, all that's coming up at midday, but up next was this, the best performance we've seen from Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch yet.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I've identified a way to save taxpayers huge amounts of money by sacking just one person, a woman sitting opposite.
Well, more on that next. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's fair to say it's quite a bit milder than it was this time yesterday for many of us, and the milder theme's going to continue through today, but with that it's also going to be quite cloudy and a bit wet at times. We have some rain across northern and western areas at the moment, and a lot of that is going to filter a bit further east and southeast as we go through the day, but it's going to take quite a while to move through, so actually some parts of the southeast staying largely dry, at least through daylight hours. That is. Now, as I mentioned, it's mild, markedly milder than it was this time yesterday, and temperatures rising through the day. We're looking at highs around 13, 14 Celsius, so a fair few degrees above average for the time of year. But we do need to watch out for some strong blustery winds. Breezy for all of us, but the strongest winds will be across northern and western parts of Scotland as we go through this evening, and overnight gusts of 60 to 70, perhaps 75 miles per hour here. Also, plenty of showers across northern and western Scotland. Some of them could be quite heavy. A few showers across parts of Northern Ireland through this evening. Some clearer weather across much of northern England and Wales, but across central, southern, eastern England, it's a cloudy, damp end to the day, but eventually that rain is going to clear away towards the southeast around midnight time. I'm expecting it to clear away entirely. Otherwise then, clearer skies following in behind for most, but still plenty of showers towards the north and west. Still those strong winds to watch out for as well towards northwest Scotland. Temperatures not dropping as low as they have done through some recent nights. Despite the clear skies, that breeze will stop it from getting especially chilly. Then Friday actually looks like a largely fine start for many. Still breezy for sure, but a lot of sunshine to be had first thing. More showers developing as we go through the day, coming in from the west and fairly frequent across parts of Scotland. Some winteriness mixed in over the higher ground too. Watch out as those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain at times, and temperatures around average, so not quite as high as they are today.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health, Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It is 19 minutes to 12 and you're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Some more breaking news coming to the newsroom about immigration. Who better to explain it all than our Home Security editor, Mark White? Mark.
Well, this is about the so-called hokey-cokey migrant. Remember him? Actually, there was two, because the first chap, an Iranian who had been returned to France and then came back a couple of weeks later, and a few weeks after that was eventually returned back to France, was replaced by another migrant who had also been returned to France and then got the next small boat back across the channel. Well, this morning, the government has just confirmed that he has been returned to France some 20 days or so after he arrived back across the channel. And they've confirmed as well that the number of those returned as part of this deal with France has now risen to 153.
Wow.
Since?
In how many months?
3 months, pretty much.
50 a month?
50 a month.
I
Yeah.
didn't
Since
they
the
say it's
deal
going to be 50 a
was
week?
operationalised, yeah.
And how many
there's
have
been about 13,000 have come in that same
There we
period.
are, that's
There was
the
a
truth.
piece of analysis in one of the papers yesterday saying that the threat of the Rwanda deal, which of course was never implemented, had more impact on reducing immigration by small boats than the actual one-in, one-out system.
Well, there's no doubt it had an impact because I saw that for myself when I was in France with some very worried migrants about what it would mean for them. And then we saw as well some movement over the border from Northern Ireland into Southern Ireland, into the Irish Republic, as the deal looked as though it was in the final phases and about to be operationalised. However, for reasons known only to himself, Rishi Sunak decided to call an election before he gave it any chance.
And, of course, the Prime Minister cancelled the deal
as soon as they
on
got
day
it.
two.
Day one.
Day one,
One of the very first things he did when he got into Downing Street was to scrap that deal. And look where we are now, with no deterrent, because whatever the government tries to say about this returns deal with France, well, I know for a fact that people smugglers are saying to migrants, don't worry about being sent back to France. It's not going to happen. The chances are minuscule. And if they do, we will pay for your journey back across the channel.
So they've also got
was
an insurance scheme.
Which is happening on these occasions. These people didn't suddenly find another £3,000 to pay the people smugglers. It was part of the guarantee that in the unlikely event that you ever get returned, we'll put you on another boat free of charge.
It's astonishing, isn't it? It's absolutely astonishing. Because they're making that much money, these people smugglers, that they can afford to give them a free passage back.
It's a multi-billion pound industry right across the globe because, you know, the English Channel is just one arm of the end process of this illegal trade. It comes out of Europe, Africa, the Middle East, coming to rich industrialised nations, of course, in Europe and in the United States.
Remind us, Mark, how the government is getting on with smashing the gangs.
Well, what they will say is that they have managed to disrupt hundreds of supply lines, and they may well have done that. But as we've spoken about on this show before, the supply lines are so well established and so robust that you take down one supplier, one route, they can switch to another source. And we've seen that with different designs of boats that have been coming across the channel. They can easily adapt and overcome. They might be set back for a day or two, a week or two, but in the overall scheme of the business, it's like the drugs trade. It's just not a business you can easily dismantle. Well, we've seen from the drugs trade, you cannot dismantle it. You have your successes, usually, actually, we should say, driven by the people smuggler, not the people smugglers, but the drug smugglers themselves, who give tip-offs to the authorities so that they seize one particular shipment coming across the Atlantic or wherever, while 2 or 3 other shipments just pass undetected.
So depressing.
They do the same with small boats, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. There are tip-offs to the authorities about beaches that, you know, and an attempt that will be made from a certain beach at a certain time. The authorities go there, and while they're doing that, various other launches take place from further up the coast.
I think they're a bit cleverer than the British authorities or the French police.
Cunning, certainly. Yeah.
Certainly are.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mark. And up next, we have the most famous resident of Benefit Street in Birmingham on the show, reacting to the Chancellor's budget.
But first, you've got that elusive holiday sun. Here's the forecast.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
There's some further heavy, thundery rain affecting parts of Eastern Europe as we go through the next few days, particularly Greece and Albania. But starting off further west, yes, some rain pushing into the far northwest of Spain, but actually ahead of that, tomorrow looks largely fine and dry. A few bits of rain across the southern parts of Italy, but as I mentioned, it's further east, Greece, Turkey, Albania, where we're going to see heavy rain building up. Some places could see 250 millimetres through this week, enough to cause some disruption.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Now, the Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, described the statement as a budget for Benefit Street, and that's where our national reporter Will Godley has gone. He's in Birmingham. Will, tell us what the reaction is to the budget.
Well, yeah, this is Benefit Street. Good morning to you both. And it got that name from that controversial Channel 4 documentary about 10 or so years ago, where 90% of the residents who live on this street were on benefits, the show claimed. And of course, the most famous resident back then in that documentary went by the name of White D. Well, she's now known as D. Kelly, and she no longer lives on this street. But earlier on, I spoke to her to hear what she thought of this budget. A budget for Benefit Street. What do you think about that?
Budget for Benefit Street. I was on Benefit Street. I was part of that documentary. Do you know what I'm saying? And again, it's a very Tory thing to say. Do you know what I mean? And this is why I think a lot of people in this country have just got no faith in any way, shape or form with any of them. I mean, I sat there and watched it yesterday, and I might as well have been in the kids' playground at school. You know what I mean? The heckling, I'm like, come on. Do you know what I'm saying? And this is, this is a room full of people that us, the general public, have to sort of, are making decisions on our life. It's an absolute embarrassment.
So as someone who used to live on Benefit Street, the fact that welfare is going up, you must be thrilled.
Thrilled. Do you know what I'm saying? That's such a political thing to say. No, I'm not. Well, I suppose I'm thrilled from the point of view of what I deal with on a daily basis at the community hub. People who haven't got shoes on their feet, haven't got like a coat on their back, do you know what I'm saying? But again, I'm also for, and always have been for, the hard worker that works. I was going to swear, but I won't swear. That works their absolute butt off to just put basic food on their tables. It's not fair. It's a kind of like a no-win situation. But what's the in-between?
Well, D. Kelly reacting there to the budget being dubbed as the Benefit Street budget. Why is that? Because taxes are going up to fund a rise in the welfare bill, universal credit, PIP payments, and also the carers allowance, all increasing, plus a scrap to the two-child benefit cap, leading to welfare spending going up by £333 billion this year to £406 billion by 2030. An eye-watering figure, some describing it, but people here on Benefit Street seemingly unaware a budget has even gone on.
Will Godley, thank you very much for that report. Isn't that interesting, Andrew, that even people who are on benefits recognise the problems of the system?
Well, it's like a lot of people who come here, with migrants who come here, know that migration is too high.
Yes, that's
because they know it's chasing too few jobs, too few houses, and it's putting too much pressure on the NHS and our schools.
So many people understand the problems and what needs to happen, but the government is incapable of doing it. And I am worried that any government will be incapable of doing it because the problems get more and more entrenched.
Now, don't forget, coming up later in the programme, the Prime Minister is speaking to GB News.
With Tom and Dawn.
Yeah. Up next, good afternoon, Tom and Dawn. I'll see you next week.
I'll see you tomorrow, but first of all, your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The wind's picking up today. It's going to be very windy across northern Scotland tonight. Those winds bringing in pretty mild air, also a lot of cloud, and for some, outbreaks of rain. Low pressure is the reason why. Sitting up to the northwest, the isobars squeezing together. This weather front bringing some pretty soggy conditions across parts of western Scotland, Northern Ireland, but there's also bands of showers crossing England and Wales. Parts of eastern England may well stay dry. It should get a bit brighter through the afternoon for parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland, but increasingly blustery here. Everywhere the wind's steadily picking up, but as I said, bringing mild air. It's much, much milder compared to this time yesterday. Temperatures getting up to 13 or 14 Celsius. Now we'll see further outbreaks of rain coming in across England and Wales through the evening time, but it's further north where we're mostly concerned about the winds really picking up overnight across northern and westernmost parts of Scotland. Gusts of 60, maybe 70 miles an hour, perhaps even 75 miles an hour through the night in some exposed areas. Those strong winds bringing plenty of heavy showers, even the odd thunderstorm moving through. For England and Wales, we'll see these bands of showery rain working from west to east, kind of fizzling out as they do so. And clearer skies should follow for northern England, the Midlands and Wales before midnight. Plenty of showers packing in on this very